Good morning, live from Los Angeles. This is Rabbi Sherman and Rabbi on the Sidelines, where we discuss the intersection of sports and faith. We are just days away from the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, where, of course, we always love watching the sport of swimming and the stars and future stars that come out during those amazing events. This morning, we are joined by four-time United States Olympic gold medalist in swimming, 2 medals in the 4x100 meter medley relay, a gold medal in the 100 and 200 meter backstroke, a participant in the Maccabiah Games within Israel, and a strong advocate for Judaism, for Israel, and the sports of swimming. We are honored this morning to be joined by Lenny Krayzelburg. Lenny, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here and have a great conversation. Looking forward to it.
So just days away from the Olympics. We missed last year's Olympics based on COVID, obviously. What do you see coming up this year that we should be looking out for, both within the United States team and around the world?
Well, I think first and foremost, the athletes are excited that the games are happening. You know, for the Olympians, this is it. I mean, that for us, that's the highest level of athleticism you can reach, the highest level of competition, and certainly having a chance to go to the Olympics, it's very special. And there for a minute, people weren't sure if that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it is happening, it's very exciting for global sports in general, but certainly for the U.S. Olympic team, and in particular swim team, it's really exciting time. I just came back from U.S. Olympic trials a couple of weeks ago, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see the roster of the team. There are definitely some veterans on that team, as well as a lot of first-timers, which is very interesting. You could really sense the generational change because there are so many first-timers on this particular team. So it will be interesting to see how it all plays out, how they perform. But the fact that they're going to the games and representing United States of America, I mean, and having our flag on your cap speaks a lot, and for the responsibility you have, not just for yourself, your family, but also for this country.
So you talked about the generational change. Does that look any different in the pool in terms of how these swimmers train, in terms of either different techniques, or from your time to this time, what has changed within those generations?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. Both generational change in terms of times. Times are faster. But I will tell you, certain events are faster than others. Training methods have absolutely changed. If I if I give an example of what I used to do when we trained, it was all about volume training. The more, the better. Now, same events for athletes that are swimming same events that I did, it's more race-based training. So you really got to be able to train at the speeds that you're going to race. So you got to be able to prepare your body what it feels like to train at a certain discomfort, and it's really important. It's all about that muscle memory and mental memory. So that's a big change. Obviously, technology, the swimsuit technology has changed quite a bit as well. The swimsuits are very different. The material is different these days. It definitely helps the bodies to float up on the water a little bit higher, which decreases the drag, makes you go a little faster. So there's definitely been advancements. But then you look at most sports, there's always, it's a natural progression that things continue to evolve, and it's no different in swimming.
So you just said discomfort, the practice of discomfort. Take us through what that actually means. I mean, we always hear no pain, no gain, but in terms of the highest level of sports, is that the healthy way of practice, or is there a discomfort level where you understand that what I'm doing right now will allow me to achieve and not give up?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's well, I guess it's both. It's certainly a understanding that you have to go through the process of being uncomfortable to get to a point where you are comfortable and where you are successful. I think that's just the way of life, really. And certainly in sports, it's very true. So it is important that you go through that process on a daily basis. But it also, in terms of pushing your body to the limit and being able to perform at your peak, you're obviously going to enter into a period of being uncomfortable, being because you're pushing your body to that limit. So how do you manage that? And obviously, most of it comes from mentally being aware of that, because you have practiced it over and over and over, and it's almost becomes a second nature. You don't think about that. So it's a process, and I will tell you, a lot of it happens in practices, and you got to learn that, and you got to go through that process really on a daily basis if you want to get to the level that we all try to achieve in sports.
I mean, what you just said is a common element of faith that I've been speaking to many different people in the sports world. It's this idea that, people think that when you walk into a religious institution that you're going to stand up in the medal stand right away. But it's the discomfort that you sometimes go through in order to understand these greater heights that you are trying to achieve as well. So your story is unbelievable, because as a U.S. Olympian, you were not born in this country. And not only that, born in Odessa in Russia, your Jewish identity was something that you didn't really know about so much. So before you talk about that, I'm going to share a little clip here from, I believe, the Tribe conference a couple of years ago. Lenny Krayzelburg, four-time U.S. Olympian gold medalist for the swim team. Here's his story about growing up in Odessa, Russia.
So my story starts in the former Soviet Union. I was born in Odessa, currently Ukraine, and definitely in a city that didn't have a large Jewish community. Judaism wasn't something we talked about a lot, wasn't something you spoken, at home, wasn't something you spoke at school about. But we, as a family, were very proud, to be living in Odessa. At 5 years old, my father decided to have me start swimming. Something I didn't know much about, but he really wanted me to be in athletics. So he enrolled me in a Soviet sports system where I can try and learn how to swim. It was definitely a interesting experience. I certainly enjoyed it right away and really liked the environment, but it was also a bit awkward for me because I was the only Jewish kid on that team, and even at 6, 7 years old, you could already hear the names, bad names that I was called, being Jewish and kind of being alone in that environment. Because
So you said two things that are really fascinating. Number one is your dad lived out the Jewish teaching within our Talmud that one of the things you should do is teach your child to swim. And he did that literally, which we'll talk about in a moment. But then you also mentioned, and we're talking about a rise of anti-Semitism today in this country of America, what it was like back then in the early 80s to be part of this Russian swim club as a sort of perhaps hidden Jewish identity, but hearing what the kids were talking about. So go back to walking into those swim clubs as a Russian Jew and what that meant to you, or what you didn't know it meant to you at that time.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so great to look at that video again. I haven't seen that in a while.
You should watch it. Everybody should watch the entire video. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, yeah, as I mentioned, growing up in Odessa, it was a very interesting experience. I don't know how many viewers know about history of Odessa, but it was one of the largest Jewish populations going back to 19th century. So there was always a great Jewish tradition. However, during communism years, it was always suppressed and hidden, and because there was so much anti-Semitism going on. My parents obviously experienced that, felt that growing up, and they tried to shield us from it a bit. But obviously, when you're out there, when you're going out there in the world, and your parents are not around you, it kind of relates to every father needs to teach their child how to swim. There's a literal translation, but there's also like it's going out there in the world and experiencing for yourself and being prepared to handle the obstacles. So for me, it was hard because you could tell I sense I was a bit different because of being only Jewish kid, growing up in a culture where kids, my peers, although they might have not understood themselves what it was, who I was as a Jew, but they certainly heard it at home because it was such a big part of the Soviet culture that Jews were looked down upon and would usually be the cause of all the problems that the Soviets, the communism had. So they were certainly communicating that by their, whether it be verbal, whether it be more just keeping me away from the majority of the group of our class, but they was kind of being pushed aside in a sense because of me being Jewish. One thing I will tell you though, my coach was Armenian. So there was that, I guess, a little bit layer of support and protection because, our Armenians were also a minority and also faced their own suppression in Soviet times. So it was good to have an ally in my corner. But I will tell you that really a lot of times I had to prove myself and really establish myself based on what I was doing in the pool. And that was my way out, kind of.
That's interesting. So when you say that, right, all of a sudden, Lenny, the best kid in the pool, right, did that then gain respect? Oh, we're going to put the Jewish thing aside.
Yeah. I mean that's basically what it came down to is that once what I was doing in the pool, what I was doing in training, whether it be outside in the weight room or when we were doing cross training, I was one of those leaders, and I was never a vocal leader. I was always one leading by example and leading by my actions, and I don't know. I guess it's a human nature that people tend to align with someone that leads by example and excels. And I'd like to think that those are my principles early on, and I've never, lost those principles. They're still really important to me today.
So there you are as a child growing up as a Jew in the Russian sports system, and at 13 you go to the United States of America, but a winding way, as we say, the wandering Jews, with the help of HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which helps you financially in this country, I believe through Vienna and Italy, if I got all the facts correct. But you end up finally in the United States and you train at the JCC right down the road from here at Sinai Temple. Go to that moment when you're like, wow, now I'm training in a Jewish community center. Put those pieces together, and what was that like?
Well, first of all, the fact that I was comfortable talking about being Jewish, that was a change to begin with, right? Considering where I grew up in Soviet Union. So just the fact that I started to learn more about Judaism and just being at the JCC, and I remember the first experience of a Purim carnival, and in I think '89, maybe 2 months living in this country, it was special. It was welcoming. It was certainly, you felt community, and you felt a lot of pride. So swimming at the Jewish Community Center obviously was like, wow, like after, my experiences in Soviet Union, here I am now in LA and swimming on the swim team at the Jewish Community Center. It was ironic, right? That this is the place where I ended up being and trying to establish my home here in this country.
Which is amazing, because right now your swim academy is now at the Jewish Community Center, which my daughter, now 9, was 6 months old when we put her in that first pool. So thank you for what you have been doing, not just for the Jewish community, but really everybody within the LA community as well. So you end up training and you go to Santa Monica. I believe that you didn't get any scholarships for swimming. So we'll take a quick look at this from Santa Monica College, how you get to USC and the inspiration to the Olympics.
During his freshman year at Santa Monica City College, Krayzelburg began training during the summer with USC's Trojan Swim Club under then head coach Mark Schubert.
And by the time the summer was over, Mark got me into his office and said, Lenny, I want to offer you a full ride to USC, and I really believe you could be the best backstroker in the world. After finishing my collegiate eligibility, in '98 I became a pro and signed my first contract at that time, with the focus to make it to the Olympic Games in 2000 in Sydney.
When did you realize that you went from a non-scholarship swimmer to a potentially best backstroke swimmer in the entire world competing in the Olympics?
Well, the realization came in 1996 at U.S. Nationals in the summertime. That was, I didn't make the Olympic team a few months prior to that, and I went to those U.S. Nationals and won both the 100 and 200 backstroke, and my times would have medaled at the Olympic Games.
Wow. And
at that moment, I realized that I belong. And I think that's really important. The word belong is really important, especially when you're striving to accomplish something. Confidence, feeling confident and understanding and realizing that you belong is very powerful. So because from feeling of belonging, you also your confidence goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt that it was just a matter of time until I will be the best backstroker in the world. Wow. And I've heard the coaches tell me that Lenny, you are talented and good enough to be the best in the world. And for me personally, I love workout. I love hard work. I thrive on that. I love the feeling of being so tired and exhausted because you left it all in the swimming pool for me. Mm-hmm. And that feeling, I always got a high off of that. And that's why I knew it would be just a matter of time until I mature, I get enough training under my belt to be the best in the world.
So let's go to Sydney and look at this Olympic record that you broke.
Behind them, Watson is trying to go with them. Krayzelburg by a stroke. Welsh is taking it to him. Krayzelburg from Welsh, first and second. Krayzelburg, he's got about 15 meters to swim. Welsh is trying hard. Watson is coming on. Good wrap, bronze. Krayzelburg in front, he's going to win. Welsh will get second. Watson is fourth.
So there you break an Olympic record. What is it like in the pool? I know what it's like watching on TV, but what are you focusing on? It's different than any other type of sport. Like you can't see the guy in lane 1 or lane 10. Is it just focusing on yourself? How do you get to that moment? And when do you realize that you've actually won the race and broken an Olympic record?
Well, there's a lot to answer there. Well, first of all, you definitely don't see, you can see few people on either side of you just with your peripheral vision, but that's about it. You're really trying to stay in your lane, in your zone, and trying to focus on what you're trying to accomplish. Obviously for me, I could see I was ahead of majority of the people, but I could also see that in lane 5, Matt Walsh was pretty close to me, but I felt like I had about a half a body lead on him.
You had longer fingernails.
Well, that always helps, especially in swimming. We're talking about the hundreds of a second difference sometimes. So I sensed it, but certainly I was also a bit surprised how much he was able to hang on to me. And I knew I didn't really feel 100% comfortable until I launched into the wall, touched the wall, and I kind of looked to the side and I could see he was just coming in.
Wow.
So that feeling that I got it. But it also, how does it feel? For me personally, it was a relief, quite honestly. There was a lot of pressure on me heading into the games. I was favored to win the gold medals. I was a world record holder at that time. And, for the U.S., I was probably one of the top athletes for the whole U.S. delegation, not just swim delegation. There's a lot of expectations and a lot of sponsor expectations. So there was definitely pressure. So first feeling is relief. Second feeling is tremendous accomplishment and pride, and also realization. 11 years prior to it, I came to America with a dream that my parents had for me, and here I am, standing in the medal pedestal as an Olympic champion, and a Star Spangled Banner is playing in my honor. It's pretty incredible.
So that's Sydney in 2000, but then 2004 in Athens, you make a return. You get to the top. You said there was relief that you did that, but now is there pressure again, or is it just like whatever happens, happens? How do you repeat? And you look at LeBron James and Michael Jordan and all these great athletes to repeat or three-peat. Is that your goal, or is they just, I'm here? How do you stay on top once you get there?
Yeah, that's, for me, and let me just go back for a minute. Before the final of that 100 video we just watched, that 100 race, I was really nervous also, because I knew, and especially the night before, I knew that tomorrow night, and I always say this, tomorrow night at 7:30, I have to be good for 52 seconds. Will I ever have that chance again in life? I really don't know. And I thought about that. And ironically, over the next 4 years heading into Athens, that's exactly what I experienced. I had a lot of injuries. I had 3 shoulder injuries. I had 2 shoulder surgeries. I had a knee surgery. So I could never stay healthy. And to be able to stay at this level and compete with the best in the world when you're not healthy is just really tough. So it was more mentally being able to persevere through these challenges and not give up and not say, you know what, you're already a 3-time Olympic gold medalist. Maybe it's time to move on. So this was the most challenging part for me. There is a part of me that wishes, or kind of like wishes things would have been different, is that I wish I would have stayed healthy in between those 2 Olympic Games, because I do think my best was still ahead of me. But you know how sometimes in sports, some have a lucky break and are always healthy throughout their career, and some have to, grind it through injuries. So for me, making the Athens team was tremendous accomplishment, considering what I went through physically to get to that point and qualify for the second games.
And take us through like the difference between individual race, like we just saw, and like the 4x100, like being the strongest link, the weakest link. What is the team aspect when you're dealing with the medley type of relay race in the swim?
Well, swimming for a team, it always raises your level of excitement few folds at the least, because you're not doing it just for yourself. You're part of the team, and you have greater expectation and greater responsibility, but also you're able to feed off of the energy that your teammates provide. And I think it's so important in any team sport is to have that right energy, that right attitude, and everyone being in sync. And when that happens, it's almost magical, the results that you can accomplish. And I certainly was fortunate enough to experience that in Sydney as well as in Athens, is when everything clicks and when all of your teammates are on the same page, and you guys are first and foremost, you're swimming for each other and have tremendous pride in that and honor.
So that's your Olympic career. you have taken us around the world, from Russia to Vienna to Italy to the United States, then back to Sydney, and then to Athens. But there's one piece that's missing, and that's the land of Israel. So here's a short little clip about your trips to Israel, and then we'll talk about your connection to that land.
For me personally, I've been to Israel 3 times, and every time I went, I learned something new. I really think that every time you go there, you learn something new, you experience something new. Someone can give you a different perspective that you didn't necessarily know the first time around. So going there, even for kids that have been there before, I think being part of a different group is going to be a very unique, exciting experience. They're going to be among the teenagers, their same age. They're going to spend some time with Olympic champions, and it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
So what was your knowledge about Israel growing up in Russia? And then when did you also realize that, you know what, this is also an achievement, that I will walk into the land of Israel and take your talents of swimming there to represent the Jewish people?
Well, not much knowledge growing up in Odessa.
That's what I thought.
No, we didn't talk much about Israel. I mean, if I recall, the first time that Israel really came into a conversation was when we were planning to immigrate, because leaving Soviet Union as a Jew looking for political asylum, we all were going to Israel, and it's when we got to Vienna is when we actually. I mean, we all knew all along we're going to the U.S., but at least exiting the country, we were all going to Israel. And
wow.
in Vienna is when you actually were going either to Israel or to Rome and then the United States. But, for me, going to Israel in 2001, that was the first time I went to the Maccabiah. It was a very special experience. On many levels. First of all, tremendous pride for being Jewish, for our heritage, for our community, for the culture, for pride of being a Jew. I think that I don't know if you feel it, at least for me personally, it raises the level of pride and when you get there. Mm-hmm. At least that's how I experienced it. So 2001 was really special. I also went during a very tough time because it was right at that second Intifada, and there was a lot of just the energy and the vibe and concerns were real. And the games were actually, there was talk of games potentially being canceled. And but the fact that I was there, in fact that the Jews from around the world came for the games and were there to support the Israelis and to show support for them and for the games to happen, and really just be part of that experience and being in the opening ceremony, and for me having an honor to carry United States flag into an opening ceremony. I mean, there's so many things about that experience. Honestly, it's surreal. I mean, you don't really think about things like that can actually happen, where you grew up and eventually you move to the country like United States and you're proud to be a Jew, and then you go to Israel and you're fortunate enough to carry a United States flag into opening ceremony. I mean, that's just, and then you're in the stadium, and then the full stadium is singing Hatikva.
Wow!
I mean,
give me the chills right now.
Yeah, I mean that's just it's special, and it's almost impossible to really describe it. Mm-hmm. I think you have to really feel it, and that's where your I guess the level of pride just goes to the next level, because it is so special, and it is so special to know that through all the challenges, through all the obstacles, throughout history of time, we continue to thrive and excel and grow and impact the world in so many ways.
So we were actually going to take a trip this summer from Sinai Temple to go to the Maccabiah games, and it got postponed next year. So we're planning that right now, and we hope to experience at least part of that to understand what it means to bring together faith, sports, Judaism, and really put them all in one. We spoke offline just before about next year, the 50th anniversary of the Munich massacre, and that also brought together Israel, Judaism, and sports. What does that mean to you as a U.S. Olympic swimmer born in Russia, connected to the state of Israel, with that coming up 50 years, and also with the anti-Semitism that unfortunately is growing even today? How can the sports world today in 2021 be a beacon of light to the rest of the world that doesn't know who we are and what we're about?
Well, first of all, we know that sport changes the world. That's one common thread that it brings a lot of the world together and cultures together. And I think through sport, we need to continue to talk about and highlight the anti-Semitism and highlight the positives, highlight our culture, our tradition, our principles and values, Jewish principles and values that are so important and so right, so appropriate. I think people that truly, non-Jews, that truly understand the right principles of community and support and family and helping others really value what Jewish teachings give and teach. We need to continue to talk about that and vocalize that. And obviously, the 50-year anniversary is certainly it's a dark moment in Olympic history, in Jewish history. I think the most important thing is that we have to continue to educate this young generation, this next generation, about these really painful moments in history. And because it's our responsibility to continue to keep this going and educate. It's all about education, right? I think that's the key. It's educating the next generation and not being afraid to talk about it and highlighting it.
So you talked about sport changing the world. After this unbelievable career, you could have said, I'm done. But you created this swim academy, which has been unbelievable. And as I said that I'm going to be in conversation with you, we got a wonderful email from a member of our community, a member of your swim community. I want to give a shout out to Zach Mandel. Hopefully he's watching. Why did you create that community, and what has that done for children and their families outside of the swimming pool that you teach those lessons in the swimming pool?
Well, for those people that follow sports and professional athletes, they see it's very obvious to notice that there's a really tough transition into a real world after athletes retire from their professional careers. And how do you find yourself? How do you get to do something that you wake up every morning with a purpose and drive? And for me, I certainly wanted to stay in sports. I've always enjoyed working with kids, and I was so fortunate to realize and have people around me to help me start the swim academy and realize this vision and understand that you're in a position of doing something that impacts so many young people. And it's special. So it's been 16 years now that we have had this swim academy, and the impact we make is really powerful. Through sport, there's so many life lessons of perseverance and dedication and commitment, and working together with others that are life lessons. And to be able to build something like this that kids can experience, go through, feel fulfilled and satisfy themselves, and feel a lot of pride for themselves as they continue to reach their goals is so important. That for me, and just fortunate that I can be in the position to have this vision and then have the right people to help execute it and realize it on an everyday basis.
That's amazing. And like I said, so many, those pools are jammed with children and families doing exactly what your dad did for you in Odessa, saying, this is a sport, a lesson that I want to teach my children. So final question, as we watch the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, who's the next Krayzelburg, who's the next Phelps, who should we be watching out for on that Olympic medal stand, hopefully from the United States?
Well, Caleb Dressel is the name everyone should be looking at. He is definitely a superstar in the world of swimming. We are fortunate to have him as a United States Olympian. He is definitely one to watch. I think he has a shot to win multiple gold medals.
Wow.
And you will hear that name quite a bit during the 2 weeks of the Olympics, and certainly first week when swimming competition is happening.
You heard it here first on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Caleb Dressel. We'll make sure we give him the appropriate bracha, the blessing, to get him to the medal stand. Lenny, it's been an amazing joy to join us here on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Much more than the lessons that we learn in the pool is the impact that you have made on the Jewish community, on the swim community, but really the communities that you live in and take part at as well. We look forward to you joining us in person one day here at Sinai Temple, hopefully over this upcoming year. Good luck with the academy, with the team that you are involved as well, and also to the U.S. on this July 4th weekend. I think we can say God bless America and God bless the USA in the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. Lenny, it's great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.